I started from nothing, never knew where my next meal was coming. But I transformed my life, I stay one step ahead. Mindset of disruption, I own the edge. This is the ThrillCast, where I bring the wisdom you need. Everyone is selling knowledge, I give mine away for free. I'm as real as it gets, you either love or hate me. Best believe I'm major league, Bill Hines, that's me. This is the ThrillCast. This is the ThrillCast. This is the ThrillCast. Now let's go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ThrillCast. With me today is a fellow racer, Robert Stout. Robert is a four-time national champion in sport cars. He's one of, I would say he's my pick for the 2023 Stadium Super Truck Championship. That's who my pick is. Every year I kind of do a pick. I think he's the man to beat. I think that, he did 2 years in it. He fell, I think, like 33 points shy of the championship. I think if there were a few more rounds, it would have been a little bit closer. Congrats to Gavin Harlan, who won the championship. But, Robert Stout is our guest. And Robert, welcome to the ThrillCast.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Glad I'm able to join here and getting ready to kick off another season here shortly. So we'll be seeing each other in person here in not too long at all.
Yeah, some people, when I say I do my picks, and they're like, well, why aren't you picking you? I'm like, well, one, I'm realistic. And, the world would have to align very well for me to beat the likes of a Robert Stout or a Matt Brabham or a Gavin Harlan or a Robbie Gordon. Not impossible, but, I like to say, when somebody asks, Shaq, who's the best, he's going to say, Jordan or Kobe or somebody. You're not going to say yourself. So, yeah, do I think I can win every race I'm in? Absolutely. Stranger things have happened, So, but for me to pick somebody else, last year, I actually thought you were going to do it. And up until, I think if the one race wasn't taken away from you, I think you would have had it. That was
yeah,
big.
that was a big one for sure. Since just Gavin and I raced so close and so hard all last season, it was a ton of fun. But Nashville was the real kicker. So not just I got sent to the wall in the last turn of the last lap while we were in a podium spot, and then had to go to a backup truck. This was the big kicker. I had to go to the backup truck, and the backup truck didn't even finish a lap.
But who did that?
Oh, that's my good pal, Max Gordon, of course.
Oh, Max put you in.
Yeah, Max and I got together last turn, last lap. That one set me up into the wall. And
on that left-hander.
Yeah. Yep. So it set me through first to the wall. So I went DNF in that race, and then backup truck the next day, which didn't make it a lap. So I went DNF in the second race, and I still only lost the championship by whatever it was, 33 points or something.
So you didn't get any points really that weekend. Yeah, that one weekend, it was like you could have just stayed home on your couch and listened to your dad call the race,
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have felt as much pain as I did that following Monday.
Speaking of that, so Nashville the year prior, I believe, is when you got your first win in Stadium Super Trucks, and it was it kind of we'll bring ourselves to fast forward to the next year, to last year. I mean, so it's about lap count, and we're going to talk about that because that was some contentious stuff. So in the race you won, it's funny. Us drivers, we kind of knew where it was just because race control was in our ear, and we knew where it was going to be. But the announcers and everyone else, they were getting the wrong data, and literally the announcers, and which is one is your dad. So your dad's a famous broadcaster, Ken Stout, and he does a CBS, NBC, ABC. He's done MAV TV. I always get that wrong. That MAV TV, the racing one.
MAV TV, yep.
Yeah, MAV TV. And, what a great voice for racing he has. So maybe after you race, you can start doing that. I'm sure the DNA's in that family there, right? For that, you can broadcast career. But in that race, I felt like I even went up to your dad. I was like, yo, you kind of got cheated on that one because it's like you didn't know he won and the race was over. So, yeah, let's talk about last year and the way the lap count was. And then when you crossed the finish line, you were like you knew you won, but the announcers were like, oh, they thought we were on the white flag lap,
Yeah, so that was interesting. And again, all the drivers, competitors, everybody within the series knew what was happening. So the broadcasters are actually calling the race live, but they're doing it from a screen that is in front of them. And that screen is set up with the graphics of 10 laps to go, 9 laps to go, whatever the case may be. And we had made a lap count from the Saturday race to the Sunday race. We had made a lap count change. So the graphic on the monitor had not been adjusted. So when the broadcasters are watching it, they're seeing 10 out of 11 laps complete, but the checkered flag is flying. So in the drivers' meeting, all of us had gone over the fact, hey, we're not doing 11 laps today, we're doing 10.
Yeah.
So we were all aware. We knew we were racing to the checkered flag. That was my first win. And yeah, they don't call it for a period of time until they realize the checker had come out because the graphic on their screen was still showing there was supposed to be an extra lap. So just a real small little technical deal from their point that didn't get changed. That made it seem like it was a surprise.
Yeah.
But again, all the drivers being aware, and that was a great weekend for us, for Continental Tire and Lucas Oil to go out and win that debut overall weekend, win the race and then win the weekend at Nashville, because for anybody that's been to that race, the event is epic. It's a badass deal, man. The parties downtown and the concerts in the infield after the fact. And they did a really good job of bringing an awesome motorsports event like to the people of downtown Nashville, the walking pedestrian bridge that they can come to the event over from whatever that main road is, right? That all the bars and party area is on Broadway or whatever it may be. Yeah, what a cool event though.
Yeah, that's how I just walk back to my hotel instead of taking an Uber. I just walk over the bridge and then get something to eat and go back to the hotel. It's probably, whatever, nice mile, kind of cool off or whatever. But yeah, in that first race, wasn't it Matty B who finished second to you? And that, like, you and him was that you and him like racing to the checker, and then you kind of got him inside that last turn, that left-hander?
Yeah, him and Robbie had a really good battle, and him and Robbie went side by side through that deal. So it was him and Robbie that really had the good battle going, I believe, at the end. And I sat in third, picking a lane, and I picked Brabham, and I tried to go with him up the inside, but it wasn't enough to make it work. But him, and Robbie put on a really good show in that first race, and then the second race, I was able to just get through traffic a bit better than Brabham was. And having him, whatever it was, to be a car or two between us. I think that might have even been Max's first podium, potentially. I think he snuck up there for one of them. And that separation was the game changer that gave me the extra points over Brabham to steal the overall weekend win, if I remember correctly.
I think it was Max's second podium, because his first podium was when his dad wasn't even there. I think that was at Mid-Ohio with us. Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right, actually.
No, it might have been his first no, his first win was when his dad was away. That's right, not the first podium, because that win that he had came in Mid-Ohio, and I believe you and Gavin were fighting for the win, and Max just like dive bombed you guys in China Beach and got both of you. And I think honestly both of you were like, where did he come from?
Gavin and I we battled each other every single lap, every turn, that whole race, which was like one of the most fun races I've ever had.
Yep.
But we were so focused on one another, we never even acknowledged the fact that while we were sitting there duking it out, Max was just reeling us in the entire time.
Yeah.
And Max set up a perfect move. It was so frustrating at the time that we allowed it to happen. But it was a perfect setup. Max did exactly what he was supposed to do to get underneath us, and he just stole a 2-for-1 on the last lap and was able to get that win. But that was his second win, actually, because he had won a race at Long Beach where Robbie finished.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. Absolutely. You're right. I forgot about that one. Yeah, the Long Beach one, which was that race. I actually led for like 9 of the 11 laps, and I kind of cooked it into. I won't do that this year. I've learned from that one. I cooked it into, I think, turn 5, and I was like, shit. So, oh well. So that was funny. But yeah, so why don't we stay at Mid-Ohio? So it was this race last season, and they kept changing, from what I heard in my ears. I don't know what you heard in your ears. They were like, all right, we're going to do this many laps. And for that one, we did have a new race control. Our race control guy was not here for that race. So there was a new guy. We won't name names. And he was there and literally like what he was telling us, that the race was going to be basically the distance we actually raced, which was, where you took the checker. However, then after the fact, they went back and were like, no, it was 2 laps less. And at that time, Gavin was in the lead. So I know that's heartbreaking because, we're racing to what we're being told in our ears. And even me, like I was, regardless, I was third, and similar to the year prior, or even like you and Gavin, just like, or even the race prior, I should say, like you and Gavin, for those races, like you and him, man, get locked in these battles, and they're just even as like another racer in the race, it's like you start to think like, oh shit, I'm racing these guys too, and you kind of look at you guys, and I'm like being a fan. And I laugh. Like I giggle. I'm like laughing when you pass him and then he passes you back. And I'm just like, wait a minute, they're checking out on me. Let me get back in the game, So tell me about that sequence and stuff like that, because like, I felt bad for you because like, you're on the podium, you're getting the champagne, you're getting the trophy, your dad's interviewing you. You probably would have taken the lead in the championship points at that point. And I think whoever had the lead in that race, that sets you up. You want to be in 1, not 2. So,
yeah, so it was a big deal, and it was pretty frustrating to say the least on this because we did what we were told. I took the checkered flag in first place. I did the podium as the first place winner, and then it was taken away. Gavin and I had an awesome weekend racing against each other, and it was, again, arguably the most fun racing I've ever had. I mean, it was freaking awesome. But so here's the scenario that went down. They tell us in a driver's meeting, we are going to run X amount of laps. So hypothetically, it would be like 3 laps, then the caution will come out. Another 3 laps, caution come out. Another 3 laps, we're going to finish. Hypothetically, not that those laps were specific that way, but they tell us, okay, well, it's going to be a total of, let's say, 10 laps. And
this one was 11. This one was 11 actually, but then we went 13.
11, yeah. So there you go.
But we went 13.
They ended up running us 13 laps, right? So traditionally, you would say right off the bat, the easy decision is what they did. Okay, well, we'll go back to whatever the running order was on lap 11, and we will just make that the call. However you guys were on lap 11 is the end of the race. Well, there's a couple issues with that. For starters, when we're in a battle the way Gavin and I we're picking and choosing when we make our passes, and you don't always want to be in the lead on the last lap. I don't have any incentive to go make some crazy dive bomb move on him if there's 2 laps to go. So I have no problem sitting in second place if I'm right on his bumper and I know I can set him up somewhere. Yeah. So from anybody that has raced, you know that you always have that kind of strategy in your head. On top of that, we have race control in our ear telling us every time we restart, we have X amount of laps to go. We have X amount of laps, so 3 laps to go, 2 laps to go, 1 lap to go. White flag comes out.
Yeah.
Checkered flag this time. Checkered flag comes out. So race control was up to speed on telling us everything we needed to know. We obeyed that. We raced to the checkered flag, and I ended up winning.
Yeah.
Well, when I came back, they said, well, we're just going to revert to 2 laps before that. And my biggest argument here was, you are telling me that race control in my ear does not matter as long as something different was said in the driver's meeting.
Yeah.
The flags on track do not matter as long as something different was said in the driver's meeting.
Yeah.
So you're telling me whatever said in the driver's meeting supersedes everything else. If you tell me it's an 11-lap race and whoever does 11 laps first wins, why would I stop for a red flag? If race control is telling me to stop, why should I do that?
Yeah.
Because by switching the running order, you're telling me what race control says. If they decide to change it on the fly, I don't know why. I don't have any reason. IndyCar needs us to finish early for TV. Sometimes we shorten races. And they tell us that through race control. Hey, we're not doing this mandatory caution anymore. We've got to get going. 3 laps to go. Checkered's coming. Okay, we make an adjustment. We race until the checkered. So you're telling me by reverting that win that the flags that came out no longer take priority and race control in our ear no longer takes priority over what was said in the driver's meeting. So I'm like, okay, well, red flag comes out. I'm just not going to stop. I'm
just
not going to
keep going. Yeah, let's just keep going.
I'm not going to listen to the flags. I'm just going to do 11 laps. And as soon as I'm done, I'm parking the truck and everybody else can figure it out, because in the driver's meeting, all they said was 11 laps, right? It's kind of silly to think of it that way. So the fact that they made the decision still, the fact that USAC still decided to make the decision to revert that to the previous lap count and saying that what race control had changed the laps. Now, it was a mistake. They changed it on accident, but they did change it.
Yeah.
They told us that the lap count was going to be different. Here's when the flags are coming. The flags came out exactly when they should have. We all knew it. That's why we all kept racing. If we all thought the race was ending 2 laps earlier, Gavin would have pulled it into pit lane and said, I won. But he knew that race control was telling us there's 2 laps to go. And nothing against Gavin. He did everything.
Well, there was no check.
Right.
There was no white flag or checker flag either until.
Yeah. And we're not dumb. You know, people can count their laps in the truck. I will say personally, I don't. I knew something was wrong. I was like, we're running longer than I would have thought, but I wasn't counting exactly where we were.
Oh, I knew. I was like, where I come off that left-hander, right? And I'm just like, I'm hiked up on 3 and I'm looking up at the flag stand and I'm like, where the fuck's the white flag? I'm pretty good at that. I'm like,
right.
Okay. So then the next lap, I'm like, where the fuck is it again? Because we went 2 laps. It was so right. I'm like, shit. And then I noticed like my pickup. I'm like, uh-oh. Like I start like, you know, we're pretty calculated as far as our fuel. Right. So I was like, shit. And then you guys are just gone. I'm like, fuck. So like, yeah, you know, so I don't know. I had a problem.
So there was a few variables to it, but the gist was the reason this happened is this stand-in race director was not counting
the yellow flag laps. Yeah.
The yellow flag laps. Right. So we end up going an extra 2 laps. And that was the area. So again, that's, I've just never ran a series where you race to the checkered flag. Race control tells you to race to the checkered. Race control says when the flags are coming out. And then they come back and are like, nah, don't worry about it. We're just going to throw whatever the order was from 2 laps ago. It's like, well, wait, I had no intention on making a pass 2 laps ago. There's no point in leading with 2 laps to go. Who cares? You know, and Gavin was super cool about it, of course. And none of the drivers, it wasn't anything that any of us did. It was just a really weird scenario that was unfortunate. And I was pretty disappointed in USAC to tell me what they told me, and that we're just going to say whatever was said in the drivers' meeting supersedes flags and race control. And here's the funny part. The very next race is Nashville.
Yeah.
What do they tell us in the drivers' meeting? They say, hey, guys, we're going to try to run 11 laps, but there's been weather rolling through and IndyCar needs to get started early. So we will let you know during the session if we're changing the lap.
If we go to 9 laps, like, and cut a yellow. Like, that's what they said. We might cut a yellow. Yeah.
I was like, so you guys, race control might come to us on the radio during the race, alter the amount of laps we're going to run, alter when the flags come out, and that's the finishing order we're taking. I'm like, well, that sounds pretty funny because we just had that scenario mid-Ohio, and you guys said, no, we're just going to go back to whatever we said in the drivers' meeting.
But the other thing you know, too, is that sometimes drivers, their radios don't work. And
when I won at Nashville, I had no radio. I had no communication.
You don't know. Like, you're just looking at the flags. Like, a lot of times I could tell by the corner workers, like, kind of what's going on. And even the crowd, like, when it's going to be. Or even, like, sometimes I look up at the Jumbotrons. I can see there.
Yeah.
So that's like, you know, okay, what's going on there? But, so, it's funny. Obviously, as a driver, I want to do research on that. So, in the USAC rule book, it's like this fucking rule that was written in the 1950s. And basically the rule was that, and maybe I think the rule needs to be changed. I think they hung their hat on the fact that this rule was, hey, no matter whatever the predetermined number of laps were, if there's other errors, we're going back to the originally scheduled thing, right? And at the end of the day, you know, that's, you know, because it was his error or whatever, so he like apologized. But I think that's what they went on. But I think a rule from like 1954 shouldn't even be in the current rule book. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and you're exactly right. That's what it was. They took that rule and they're like, well, the rule says, you know,
this is the rule.
Meeting, we revert to that.
Yeah.
I was like, I said, and I looked right at them from USAC. I said, that's a bullshit rule.
Yeah.
I said, that rule is there just to cover your guys' mistakes. That's there just to cover your screw up.
Yeah.
I said, that's not there to take care of the drivers or to help anybody else.
It's never happened before.
That's just a total safety net for you guys making a mistake.
Yeah.
So that was, again, a little frustrating to say that. I shouldn't say it was a little frustrating. It was extremely frustrating. It pissed me off. And people will then, even again, bringing back this broadcasting scenario, go to my dad and say, well, you even called the race. You called the checkered flag as Gavin the winner 2 laps early.
Yeah.
But again, broadcasters going off the monitor that has the display showing we're only going to run 11 laps, and it had that countdown going. Meanwhile, we have race control in our ear telling us 3 laps to go when there should have been only 1 lap to go. But all we're hearing is 3 laps to go.
Yeah.
So even if we're knowing like, man, there should have been a flag by now of some sort, we still have race control confirming to us when the race is going to be over, which is why we all continued racing, right? But Gavin's not going to stop racing because he has race control telling him when the checkered's coming, and he hasn't seen the checkered. So we always race to the checkered like every other racer would do naturally. So yeah, that was pretty frustrating. I was a little disappointed in USAC on that and making that decision. I mean, I handed the trophy back over to Gavin, of course, fairly, but I really was disappointed in USAC on that one, to say the least. And then Nashville was just icing on the cake, and having qualifying on pole at Nashville, running all the way through the field up into the top 3, and then getting taken out. I mean, I was cleaned out last turn, last lap, sent flipping into the wall, and then a backup truck doesn't finish, which whatever, that's just the way racing goes sometimes. But yeah, I was really hoping I'd be able to have a good shot at the championship, and just a few things didn't go my way there. And one of them was fully in USAC's control. And instead of doing the right thing, they just took the cheap way out, and they went ahead and just pulled it back. So is what it is. That's what you get for racing with certain people like that in USAC sometimes, but that'll happen.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to I think the perfect storm, I think if the regular people were there, it would have been fine. But, but I think for a series like ours, you got to have the regular people there. You can't, it's we're one of the most popular series on the planets right now. Like some of our videos are getting 170 million views and stuff like that. So it's like, you don't want that controversy happening. All in all, I think the guys at USAC are nice guys and good people. So, but again, I believe that issue, and then your DNF. I mean, yeah, that probably cost you a championship. So, but Gavin Harlan, great kid, nice guy, deserving champion as well. So, but that's why I'm thinking like, okay, for 2 years in a row, you've been close. And I think you're like, all right, I'm not going to to me, the Robert Stout I know, you're not going to let anyone else interfere with your plan this year. And I think you're going to be like, all right, now I know what I got to do. Like, it's going to be like everyone sees this nice, handsome young man here. And when you strap that helmet on, you're vicious. You don't take shit from anyone. You're a different animal altogether. So, yeah.
Yeah. And the first year in any series, and I've driven a lot of different stuff between sports cars, wing sprint cars, short course off-road, stadium trucks. So I like to say I probably have more like rookie of the year trophies than anybody I know. Just bouncing around so many series. But the first year, you always kind of play nice guy. You don't want to go in there and ruffle any feathers. And, guys like you and Robbie and people that have been a part of the series for a long time, brab them. Year 2, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get after it. And then I took a few shots from people. Me and Max had some super hard battles, and I love Max too. He's great.
But I think Max is more, not to cut you off though, I think Max is more about inexperience, because at the end of the day, guys like 14, 15 now. I really don't think Max does anything intentional. I think he does when he gets pissed later on. But I think when it gets, like, let's just say something happens, the initial incident, okay, is inexperience, but then like he sees something, he gets emotional in the truck, and then he does something, but other than that, I think like I've noticed, like you're a very clean racer, like you and me. I know I was saying it to Davey Hamilton Jr. I was like, I always know where Robert Stout is. I always know where Brabham is. I know what like Gordon's going to do, or Sheldon Creed, or Orion Beat. Like some of these drivers, some of the new drivers, like in that Bristol race, which we'll talk about that, because you made probably one of the best passes I've ever seen in my life in SST. Literally, you went from like 5th to fucking 2nd in one turn. It was fucking brilliant. It was fucking amazing. So, and I actually saw that from behind me. I'm like, fuck, like, and I didn't like to see that, because like not many people want to see Robert Stout behind them in a race, because you're coming. So anyway, pick up where you left. Oh, I slammed the table. My producer hates that. But pick off where you left off about like racing with Max and that. Yeah.
Yeah, so Max and I had some hard battles, and you're right with Max. He's new, right? He's young still, and he's progressed so much. It's unbelievable. He's so fast now, and I've been on just about every end of the spectrum with him, on whether it was an intentional bump, whether it was an emotional one, or whether it just made a mistake.
Yeah.
Long Beach into the hairpin. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he did exactly what he should have done, and he moved me out of the way to try to go get a win. Rightfully so. it sucks to be on the other end of it, but that's the move, man. Everybody knows the hairpin at Long Beach, you're moving somebody out of the way.
Especially on that last lap. Last lap,
yeah,
that's a Sheldon Creed, EJ Vizo, Robbie Gordon move. All three of them have won races.
You're 1-2 laps to go. You're sliding it in there. You're putting a bumper on them. It's just what you do. If you've got a bumper, you're using it. So I get it. I just unfortunately was on the wrong end of it that time. Mid Ohio, he throws it up my door. It was a good move. Long Beach, I wasn't super pumped because he did move me. I mean, he moved me pretty much first to third. But that's all right. If he's in front of me last lap, I'll feed that one right back to him and laugh and smile with him about it when it's all over with. But when we had like Nashville, for example, where that was a mistake. I don't think he meant to. He didn't mean to hit me the way that he did. I think he meant to get it up in my door and check me up a little and try to drag race me down to the corner. Yeah. But he didn't mean to blow me out the way that he did, because it ended up being more front bumper towards driver door, which is what gave me that lateral motion that put me up on my side. Yeah. He didn't mean to do that. That wasn't intentional. I understand that. But that's when I talked to him after, and I'm like, dude, you're so freaking fast now. I'm like, you don't have to do that stuff anymore. Like, you're fast enough. You can straight up pass us when you set us up in the right moment. And he knows it. And it showed at Bristol, and he raced way better. And I've got no bad blood with Max at all. Him and I are great buds whenever we're around at the track. Yeah. Like you said, a little bit of inexperience mixed with him knowing he has the speed to go out and win these races now. And every now and then he got put in those situations, but unfortunately it seemed like it was me that was on the other end of it for like half the season for whatever reason. But no, Max is all good. But yeah, it was a big spill though. Man, that Nashville crash was no joke, and it was a pretty decent mistake that unfortunately cost me a whole weekend.
Kind of similar situation happened. I believe it was the year prior. I think Brabham, I don't think he meant to do it, but he cooked it in too much. I think he overdrove the corner. He then bicycled up on the curb and then hit you, and then you rolled. You remember that one? Like, I don't know what your take on it. That's how I took it, but maybe you think he was dirty, but I don't. Typically, Brabham's not a dirty driver in my opinion. I just think he basically was like, fuck, if I don't make this pass now, it's probably not going to happen on Robert, and and I think he just broke way too late, hit the curb, and then just went into you, and got loose. And then,
I wouldn't call it a dirty move by any means. Maybe an aggressive move, not a dirty move. Exactly what you said. And he popped late. It was one of those deals where I look in my mirror and I'm like, go to the brakes, look in my mirror. I'm like, cool, he's in line, we're good. And right when I look down, he dives hard left, bounces the inside the curb,
pops out. Yep.
And then it pops me into the wall, and the wall kind of kicks me over onto my side. And but then it was like, it happened again at Mid Ohio later that year. He came in, gets into my door, and I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get a hang for this. I'm starting to figure out what Brabham's not afraid to do here, but he knows this truck so well. He can do that stuff. And at the very most, it might do what happened to me, which is typically maybe kick me loose or spin me around. Yeah. But no blatant just plowing into anybody. Yeah. But Brabham knows the deal, and he's talk about somebody who's a really nice guy and well smiled and super nice mannered. And then puts a helmet on and is like,
oh yeah, Brabham got that Aussie charm, that accent. Look you right in the eye, and he basically puts the helmet on. He's gonna punch you right in the dick. He doesn't. He's a winner.
He's not afraid to throw it in your door and be like, "Hope you can hold on to it. Have fun." Yeah. Which is again one of those deals that's about as aggressive as I'd say is okay to deal with racing. And sometimes a little overly aggressive, but doing what we're racing, it's going to be aggressive sometimes. It is what it is. But you just have to know it. Like now I know going into race with Brabham, I'm like, okay.
It's part of the show.
He'll be clean when he needs to be clean. But when it's time to go and he decides, he gets that switch flipped in his head of like, I'm going now. Yeah. You know what to prepare for, and then you can deal with it accordingly. But that was the first time he'd really thrown one in on me like that, and it freaking pounded off my door so hard I didn't see it coming at all. I'm like, okay, now I got it. I figured Brabham out a little bit. We're good here.
Well, last year we had an interesting race at Long Beach, and I was in the lead, and then it was you, Brabham, and Brooks, okay? And we winded up going like 4 wide down that back stretch, but then we were like 2 and 2. And then I think like Brabham was there, and then I think you got all of us. Like you ended up going from 4th. Like you're the magician of that. I think you went from like 4th to 1st down that back stretch, and you got us. And then Brooks and you were battling, and then I believe Brabham finished 3rd or something like that. I don't know how that race went. I forgot it automatically, but I just remember like the 4 of us just flying down that backstretch together, like, and it was like, oh, okay, and we were all moving, and I know in like turn 5 and 6, like when I hit that jump coming off of 6 or something, I know like when I went, I just kind of wheel hopped, and I'm like, fuck, here comes Robert. I just knew that one mistake, I was like, he's gonna eat me up on this corner, like I just knew, and then so that sucks, you know, when you make a mistake and someone like you are behind, you know, it's not fun.
You were doing so good in that race. I remember looking, because like you said earlier, we do look at the big screen when we're doing these races, and I'll take a look like qualifying anything and try to take a look at where the lap times are and maybe what's happening if you're farther back or vice versa. And I could see on the big screen how checked out you were. And I was thinking before the final caution, I'm like, if we don't figure this out, like, he's going to run away. End of story. Like, we can't keep battling around back here at 4th and 5th, 6th place because you were checking out.
Yeah, I love that.
So that was a good one. But yeah, we did. We had like a whole party pack down that back straightaway that started pushing people and shuffling around into that last corner. And yeah, I think I was able to pick up 2 or 3 spots on that deal initially. But that was Brabham and I had a great race. If that was the same race as well, like we were going down the front straightaway, splitting trucks.
Oh yeah,
side into brake zones. And I mean, dude, SST is just a freaking blast. There's just no way around it. The racing is badass. It's so much fun.
I think he did it to Zoe and a couple other people, and it's just like, you know, it's like bam, it's like parting the Red Seas or something like that, and then going into that braking zone and just taking different lines. But same thing happened in Bristol. So in that race, same thing. I was checked out, and I was like, this is great, and even the announcer was like, oh, Hines backed off a lot. So like I had such a lead from my first 2 sessions. I literally just I was like, I'm saving brakes, I'm saving tires, I'm just gonna wait. And then I'm looking in behind, and as I come off the hairpin and I'm going this way, and I see you just like dive bomb everybody and go from 5th to 2nd or 6th to 2nd, like in that corner. And then I was like, fuck. So at that point I was like, shit, I better like, I don't want to get past before that next caution. So, because I was like, if I can get to that next caution, at the final caution in the lead, I'm pretty confident I'm going to get a podium, but I think I could win it because my truck was so hooked up around that banking. It was scary fast. And other drivers were trying to go high and low and triangle it. I was like, and I had texted Sheldon Creed before the race. I'm like, hey, you recently raced at Bristol. What do I do? He's like, you just stick to the bottom. Don't do all that bullshit and everything. And that's what I did. And it worked. And when I saw you coming, I was like, shit. So tell me, how'd you set that pass up though? Because it's like what Max did at 2-for-1 in mid-Ohio. That's rare. Like to get 2 trucks, unless you're like really drafting like down a Road America or something like that, where you can get 2 or 3 and you could just blow by someone in the draft. But for what you did in a slow corner, that was almost like a Long Beach hairpin, and you're not usually getting 2 trucks, let alone like you got 3 or 4. So
yeah, it was like a combination of things that went my way in that scenario for the first time all year. It seemed like they had everybody's coming in shallow, trying to drive in deep because they know it's such a big passing opportunity. And it was something like the first row went in really deep, and one guy gets a bunch of understeer. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the trucks, they have locked rear ends in them. So if you don't get the cutting brake to get some rotation out of that thing just right at the entry, you're screwed. It'll sit there with a bunch of steering and it'll just go straight and wide, and it won't turn at all. So there's a lot of finesse in there that people don't see these drivers are doing. And I think somebody had missed it in the first row of cars. So that forces him wide as he's understeering.
Yeah.
The next 2 come in shallow, late on the brake, go in tight together. They go a little wide. And I just watched it unfolding. And I went way wide on my entry and just did this massive over-under. And by the time I came out, I was side by side with somebody over the jump, I think, but was able to even clear them with a bigger run.
That was Gavin.
And suddenly I'm looking up. Yeah, suddenly I'm looking forward, and I'm like, shit, there's Bill in the lead right in front of me. Like, that worked out great. Let's get a caution going and we'll be okay here. I was never able to get you after the caution either, though. We went multiple times. I think I got alongside of you, and I was never able to make the pass happen. And then Robbie and a couple other guys snookered me because of that weird caution line or
blend line. Yeah.
You know, the blend line, like the no pass line.
Yeah.
So we had created a rule in this track just from a safety standpoint that when we enter this specific turn to the infield, it was so narrow and no runoff. We made it a gentleman's rule essentially in the driver's meeting. Hey, whoever has the lead side by side to this corner, just go ahead and fall into line.
Yeah.
To make sure that we're all safe through here. And Robbie had gotten his bumper just a little bit in front of me by that point, and I couldn't defend my
I did too,
line.
actually. You almost got
and
me.
And you did as well. And I ended up third or fourth because of it.
Yeah, if you, like, I was in the lead and it was coming to, like I said, when I saw you, like, I was relaxing because I was so checked out. And then when you went from, like, fucking downtown to second, I was like, fuck. Because I knew you or Gavin, if you guys got into second, were coming. I was like, oh man, especially if you were both second or third. I was like, these two motherfuckers, they're just going to work together. They're going to draft each other. They're not going to make any stupid mistakes. Like if you were in third, you would have pushed Gavin. If Gavin was in third, he would push you so you catch me. Because that's what we would do normally. Like, oh, let's work together, get up to the front, and then it's every man for themselves. So when I saw you in second, I was like, shit. And I was like, because I would really like the win, you know, but we went over the jump and then I had gotten to I know I got to line first. And then I even checked the video just in case. And then I was like, if you would have got me there, you would have won that race. And I think that would have been even a closer championship point. So it's like those little things, man, but it made it fun. And yeah, I same thing. Even when Gavin passed me, I did that wheel hop. That was the one worst turn I did. And then I thought I had him covered on the inside, but I went just not even a half a truck length and he shoved it in there and got me. And what can you do at that point? And then I think Robbie got you and then you finished like fourth, I believe. And Robbie got third, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So yeah, Robbie had gotten me in that scenario. I think maybe Gavin did.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't able to get by you because I got under you, but you beat me to the line. So yeah, that blend line never gave me an opportunity to battle the inside line and potentially hold on to my spot. So that rule, but it was a rule. It is what it is.
It was a rule,
that one got me. I just couldn't get the better end of that situation.
But even that race, you raced so well. You literally deserve the win in that race. Like you could, even though you finished fourth, but that's SST. Like there's races where I've dominated the race and led 10 laps, and then like you do one mistake and you dominate it, you deserve the win, and then you're fourth or fifth. It's like shit. So
yeah, nobody remembers the guy that led the Indy 500 the whole time. They just remember the guy who won it. Unless you're J.R. Hildebrand, I think everybody remembers that one.
That one was bad. That was like
I still cringe when I think about JR losing that Indy 500 in like 2011 or something like that.
I think, in the way, obviously, like you go hindsight with that one and you say, okay, Dan Weldon won. I think that's like, kind of like, I think that's
it's
why.
Like it was meant to be. Like they were like that was Weldon's last hurrah. I mean, he goes out in his final year with getting to spend more time with his children. He gets to help IndyCar develop a rear pod to go behind the rear tire, which it turns out months later would be the very way a crash gets started that ends his life, and he gets the Indy 500 win before he gets to check out. So everybody is incredibly sad to see him and have his life ended.
What a
early,
great guy too. I've actually met him before many times because he was in Andretti. Such a good dude.
Yeah, that was its own bad scenario, but yeah, man, it's everybody remembers that victory. And yeah, Bristol was a ton of fun, though. That event was great. Robbie, and one of the funniest lines that I'm sure you remember, we're sitting in the infield, and Robbie's changing the course. We qualified on a different track that we raced with and a different track that we ended.
It got changed 10 times, and I was, like, pissed off because, like I said, my truck, I don't know if you saw it, like, it was hooked up for the banking, okay? It could have...
Yeah, you remember Robbie even said... Robbie said, he said, well, you're like, why are you changing the track, Robbie? Why are you doing this? He's like, well, because I can't pass you, Bill. I can't pass you.
He goes, I can't catch you or pass you. And I'm like, and then he was so pissed off because at the end of the day, let's face it, Robbie's a legend. He should be able to pass me. But, I just had the truck that day, and Sheldon actually, since Sheldon's 15, he's been coaching me. Like the kid's that good, and he's just a nice kid. And I text him all the time, and Sheldon's never not gotten back to me. He's always texted me. He's always been a supporter of mine. I've been a supporter of his, and he's always like giving me tips and tricks. He's like, hey, send me your timesheets. And he's like, actually he gets on me. Last year he got on me. He's like, hey, what the fuck, dude? He goes, you got on the podium at Mid-Ohio with Stout won, but obviously you got second. But he said Stout won and Gavin second and you're third. He's like, look at your times. He goes, you could have got a qualifying point. You would have been P3 in qualifying based on your times. Like I think you had the pole, right? And then Gavin second. Yeah, and even your dad mentioned that. He's like, hey, dude, you better stop sandbagging. You could have had a point and kind of went for the overall, and like, think about it. If you get third overall for the weekend, you get some decent prize money with that shit. So
that's a big deal. Yeah, you got to, this qualifying points add up. And if you think you're a top 5 car, you got to go.
Yeah, I think this year I'm going to be doing that, but maybe not the first race. Maybe.
Yeah, go ahead and secure the front row start for Long Beach there. Kick off the season.
Oh, with there's 6 or 7 new people, you can bet your ass on putting it on the fake pole.
Yeah, and it seems like there's also another six people that are legitimate winners for this series as well. So yeah. I'm pretty excited. I'm not gonna lie. I'm excited about Long Beach. I love the race every year as it is. I'm going to have a very similar truck scheme, but a different sponsor that we'll be announcing shortly. That's going to come on and help us out.
You want to drop them here on the ThrillCast or no? Since it's
no. I will say that we will be back partnered with Continental Tire.
But here's the thing: you could kind of announce it because even though this is being recorded 2 weeks prior, this podcast will come out on the 14th.
That's a good point. And when you put it that way, then we now will have a sponsor who's been supporting me now for about 5 years in the off-road racing and has really enjoyed following our success over the past 2 years in the Stadium Super Truck Series. So they're going to come on as a full-time sponsor alongside Continental Tire, and that will be Injector Dynamics. So Injector Dynamics, based out of the General Phoenix area, is going to be coming on board for at least the first 2 confirmed races as of now, which will be the Long Beach Grand Prix and the Nashville Music City Grand Prix. And then we're going to continue from there as we continue to confirm races. So pretty excited to have Injector Dynamics with us for Stadium Super Trucks.
Injector Dynamics. So you find them, I guess you Google Injector Dynamics and you can find out all about them. And, I don't know them, but I'm going to research them because I like to look into, fellow drivers, sponsors and see what they do and stuff like that. And, but yeah, like I know for a fact, and people, if Injector Dynamics are listening to this on April 14th, the Friday when it comes out. So we're probably at the track right now and this is being released. So, you could not have picked a better driver, a better brand ambassador for your brand than Robert Stout. He's a champion. He's a proven winner. And your livery, Continental livery, it is going to be toward the pointy end of that field, and don't feel bad when you see his truck starting in the rear. Okay. So in Stadium Super Trucks, when your truck starts in the rear, that means you're one of the fast guys. Okay. But make no bones about it. That number, what number are you again? I forgot.
28.
28. That's right. Yeah. That number 28 is going to basically make its way up front. And I hate seeing that fucking 28, but pass by me.
Yeah, we thought about changing the scheme a little bit and the paint scheme, but I enjoyed the truck's always been red, white, and blue. So I like that there's a little bit of relativity that comes to it. For example, if you're looking in your mirror and you see me coming, because Brabham had been in the Carlisle truck the first year I raced against him, and then you put him, you had him in the yellow and the blue. Your scheme that you ran the rest of the year, the mastermind scheme, at Long Beach last year, and I could not remember for the life of me that it was Brabham behind me. Oh. So I was so used to the other paint scheme. So I was like, I want everybody to remember that it's me whenever they see me coming. So I made sure to we kept the paint scheme pretty much the same, minor differences.
He initially had that truck, and then when he went to Indy Lights, then that sponsor came to me, and then for a one-off. But I'm back on the ThrillCast truck. And then the funny thing is that with the when years ago, we literally had 5 of the same truck, and it was the live truck. And it was Gavin, Ari Lyondike, Brabham, me, even Paul Morris, all these people, right? And nobody, one time I was in the lead, or no, actually, one of them, either Paul Morris or Brabham was in the lead, but whoever was behind him, I think it could have been Sheldon or somebody, and they're like, what the hell got in the bill? Because... And they were like, oh, we'll just let him go. And literally, it was Ari at Perth, and he won the race, and everyone thought it was me, and they're like, oh, we'll get him. And it was Ari, and he was gone. And they were like, we thought it was Bill. I'm like, no, Bill's in fucking ninth, fucking around. But anyway, What are your plans this year? Besides, I see obviously the BMW logo on you, and you got a nice ass BMW behind you. So what are your plans besides Stadium Super Truck this year? And again, you're my odds-on favorite to win a championship, so don't disappoint unless I win it, and then you could disappoint. But
yeah, so we're going to commit back to Stadium Super Trucks again. Sponsors love it. The viewership's great. It's a ton of fun. Why not, right? But sports car racing is definitely, I'd say, my bread and butter. That's what I really started in racing for a long time, but don't have any sports car ride going at this year. So I'd really love to be able to find my way back into at least a few sports car events, if at all possible. And that's what I do. Majority of my day job is I'm the lead driving instructor for BMW's West Coast Performance Center. So I'm out here at the Thermal Club doing coaching on BMW, a lot of private coaching stuff on the side, of course, for work. But hopefully doing some short course off-road again as well. So we had been running a lot of UTV racing, Lucas Oil short course off-road. So we won the championship in Production 1000. We were running at a place called Texplex in an Outlaw and Unlimited class. And these things were just getting crazy fast, 100-foot tabletops, like gnarly, basically dirt bike tracks that we were racing these UTVs on. And it's getting bigger in the Midwest at a track called Mid-America Outdoor.
Yep.
The Midwest has their own series as well. So a lot of different stuff going on in the short course off-road world that we're going to continue pushing towards over the next couple of years. But hopefully my goal would be to try to get back into a few sports car races if all goes well. If you maybe either GT4 car or GT3 car. So we'll see, man. Just scrapping and looking for anybody that has any interest in supporting some kind of sports car effort is really now where I'm putting my focus since we secured the stadium truck ride.
Well, here's the thing, and I know we talked about it. So I got invited to do the KTM, that crossbow or whatever the hell it's called. I think it's called that. And for Sigier Motorsports, it's a French racing team. And they want me to drive because in 2017 I won in the NASA series, like the endurance championship, and I was the lead driver. Yeah, granted, I had people like Marco Andretti and Brabham and as my co-drivers, but yeah, they did their job, but I did my job. You know what I mean? And so we all won the championship that year. And when people say, "Oh, it's because of Marco or because of Brabham," it's like, why don't you watch the race and you see like the 6 hours of Utah, with just me and Brabham did it. I literally had the fastest lap of the race in the whole race. And Brabham got me with 2 laps to go on old tires. I was like, you dick. So, but it was my fault because I was talking shit. Like I was like, yeah, let's win. And I got the fastest lap. But anyway, if I'm going to test that car, and if I test well, and I think I will, we're going to do like the 6 hours of Utah in Utah Motorsport Park. And then like, I think the 3.5 in Button Willow. And then there's like or 3 hours in Sonoma and like a 3.5 in Button Willow. And anyway, it's that endurance thing. And then I think there's a longer race at Coda. There might be an 8 or 12 hour one there. And then there's a 25 hour, the Thunder Hill 25 hour or the 24 hour at Coda. So that's kind of might be the goal for this year. And I'm obviously going to need teammates. So in the shorter ones, you just get one teammate. And then the longer one, we add a third. So, and I know Bram's going to be busy. So I would say he would be the third. So I would have like the main one. So obviously I know how you race and you protect the equipment and you treat it well, and you're not going to, the last thing you want to do is go to Utah for a 6 hour race and then have whoever starts the race like ball that shit up in turn one. And you like,
or at 10 minutes in and everybody pack it up and go home for no reason.
Dude, in 2017, we finished second in our class for the 25 hours of Thunder Hill, right? So, which was 25 hours, right? So we had a great team, and the team right next to us, they brought like wood and like a carpenter, and they built this freaking thing. Like, okay, we're here for 25 hours. First turn, first lap, fucking sent it. He didn't hit any other. He wrecked the car, and then literally like I get done with my stint because I start the races because I'm not going to ball it up in turn one, and I get out. And I'm like, where the fuck did they go? And like they tore everything down. They were gone. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Like all week you're there setting up for a 25 hour race, and you're a minute in. you're done.
I've been a part of the 24 Hours of Daytona. I haven't been able to compete in that one yet. I've always, I've done the Michelin pilot race before and things like that. But I had been around and spotting for teams, spotted for the McLaren team last year, Ferrari before that. And like you said, having multiple drivers, there's a big deal there. Having an AM driver that goes, all the way back to last or gets lapped. Like, it doesn't matter how good your co-drivers are. It's hard to come back from that kind of stuff. So like you said, being a third or fourth driver, it's a big deal. Like, everybody has to hold their own and perform. It's so brutal when, even if you're a few hours in, 3, 4, 5 hours in, and then one stupid mistake is made and you go 20, 30 laps down because you're having to fix the car. It just sucks the life and the motivation out of the team, out of everybody that's there. And you start wondering, you're like, I know we're going to finish because it's the right thing to do. You finish something, you start if you have the ability. But man, talk about like a long night if you know you're 20 laps down and there's no chance of winning, but you're still out there working your ass off to try to do the best you guys can all possibly do. And it's just disheartening whenever you see something like that happen so early on in one of those endurance rounds.
In 2017, we were in this one race, and it was actually the 6 Hour Utah. And the one guy did his stint, and the other guy, the car broke, right? And he was like, I was going to get it fixed. And it was funny. So it was a different class. So it's like, it was a teammate. It was a different team. So another car on the team, but in a different class. And he left. So it left one driver. And usually there's 3 in that race. So I'm not kidding you. That class happened to have like all mayhem happen, right? And shit hit the fan. And then literally they fucking won the race. And the other, like, dude, where is he at? He was already at the airport in Salt Lake City. And it's like, they were like, we'll never have that guy back ever again to race because, like, why did you leave? Like, and typically you wouldn't have left that night anyway. He's like, fuck it, the car's broke. I'm just going to go back home now. And he went to caught it. Like, literally, he's at the airport boarding the flight, and his teammate, and the guy literally drove like 4.5 hours by himself. So yeah, because or not, maybe even like 5 hours because it happened really early. But if so, in an endurance race, if it happens early, you can get those laps back. But yeah, I don't think anybody that knows that situation with that driver will never race with that guy again. We don't like quitters, fuck it. Like you said.
Yeah,
finish.
That's right. You stick around, you stick it out. If you've got crew guys that are there that are going to stick it out all night and bust their ass to work on that car and get it ready so something can happen.
Yeah.
Even if you're not driving again, you don't just hightail it and say, forget it, I'm out of here. You stick it out with the boys and see it through to the end. And maybe when you're done, you all have a beer and talk about how much it sucked and you load the car up and you go. Or maybe you get lucky and things go your way and you say, nice, we won. Who would have guessed that all the hard work would have paid off? So, but you don't leave guys hanging, right?
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, man. We're almost at an hour, and we don't like to keep these too long. We actually went over than what we are, but man, when it's with people and you're talking about things you love and things you're passionate about, so that means hey, probably during the season we're gonna have our videographer out. I want to do a podcast with you and some of the other guys on the in the series, like at the track. So we'll have the at the track, and especially if you're winning, because nobody wants to be around the Robert that lost. So for a few minutes. Now you're still pretty good in you're gracious, in your defeats, and you're just fun to be around when you win. So honestly, when you won the race in Mid-Ohio, you were the first person that came up to me and it gave me a hug. You were like, fuck yeah, Bill, you got on the podium. So that's what I like about SST. Like you appreciated, you looked in, you saw Gavin at second, you saw me at third, and you were like, fuck yeah, and you came and hugged me. Whereas other series, where's a guy congratulating the guy that came in third or second? They're typically not doing that,
Yeah. Well, you want to talk about grateful. I freaking head first into the wall at Nashville, rung my freaking bell. My foot's all busted up. I can barely pull myself out of the truck. And you stopped your truck. I don't even know if you took the checkered flag.
No, I didn't take the checker.
Stop and get out and make sure that I was okay. So stuff like that goes a long way and isn't forgotten. So
I forgot about that. Yeah, but that's the right thing to do. Is I see a fellow driver, in an accident and get hurt. I'm fucking the race is not important, the human side of it and the friend. So yeah, I'm going to stop my truck and I'm going to get out and I'm going to forfeit my race, which I did. And I'll fucking dive in your truck if it's on fire or whatever. Cause that's the right thing to do. So I forgot about that because it's when it happens, I don't even think, I just do, it's not like, oh, let me do this. It's like, fuck, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was a pretty good hit to the head, but I remember that point. I remember you being there, so very appreciative of that because we've seen that similar crash go the wrong way in a few different series. So,
oh yeah,
glad to walk away and go give it another swing and keep racing, having some fun.
Well, then now I remembered everything. So the workers, the safety workers, they're trying to drag me out. I'm like, I know these trucks better than you. Get the fuck away from me. Like I'm trying to get in there, and they're like, he's getting out. He's getting out. I was like, okay. Once I saw you were okay, and then I was like, these guys are gonna call the cops on me or something like that because literally I'm arguing with them. Like they're like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, oh, you're not supposed to stop on the track. I'm like, well, he stopped on the track. Like he had no choice. I was like, literally, I'm like debating them. Like, well, he stopped. I'm stopped. What the fuck? So anyway, but nice to have you on. And we're gonna have to talk about your dad another day because your dad, he's a character into himself, and you definitely come from good pedigree. And so again, everyone, Robert Stout, and you search for him on all social media, and he's the one to watch in my eyes this year. So goodbye, everybody.